Hey folks, Palmer Thombs here of DawgsHQ, welcoming you into another edition of the Georgia Show, joined by Brent of Volquest today to preview big matchup, number 1 and number 2 in the AP poll, and number 1, number 3 in the coaches poll, and a little bit different in the college football playoff poll. Number 1, number 3 still, but the number 1 Tennessee Volunteers taking on the number 3 Georgia Bulldogs in the rankings that everyone's going to look to now that they've been announced. Now that we've turned the calendar to November, attention turns to the college football playoff rankings. And regardless of how you look at it, we got a huge game here on Saturday. Brent, thanks again for joining us to preview it. Coming at us from Knoxville, how big is this game for Tennessee's fan base?
Well, it's huge because Tennessee's not been in this world. I mean, you think about it. I mean, Tennessee fans are trying to figure out what the college football playoff rankings are, and they haven't been there. So we've answered a lot of questions about how do the rankings work, what do they go about for the parameters, what does this mean? We're going to follow this every week now. So it's different. It's different than anything any Tennessee fan has ever seen. So, since that was created. It's a huge opportunity game, and Tennessee fans and the Tennessee program know the challenge in front of them. They know how good Georgia is, how good Georgia's been, and where Georgia is as a program right now. It's what everybody in the East is chasing, and Tennessee's chase has gone a little faster than everybody anticipated. They've made up more ground in a shorter period of time than anyone thought, and put themselves in a position on Saturday to go compete against the defending national champs. They know it won't be easy, but this is a team that's going to roll in with confidence, belief that they can move the football, regardless of who they play. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. But there's tons of excitement, obviously, that this team has captured the hearts of every Tennessee fan.
Yeah, let's start there with what you said about this chase in the East. Like you said, Georgia has been the program to beat there the last couple of years, making it to Atlanta in 17, 18, 19. Took a little bit of a break there in 20, but returned in 21, taking home the ultimate crown in 21 as well. They have been, since Kirby Smart has arrived, especially the last 5 years, this year included in that, they have been the dominant program in the East, and coaches and teams and programs are hiring and firing based on what Georgia has done. That certainly felt like it was the case in Knoxville, and to bring in Josh Heupel in year 2 now, making this big of a leap. The last time that I can think of a team arriving on the scene this quickly under a coach would be 2017 Georgia Kirby Smart. Just how surprised have you been by year 2 under Josh Heupel, the fact that they are competing for championships?
Well, it starts at the quarterback position, and that's the name of the game these days, and that's been the shift. I mean, Tennessee has chased. They've hired Saban assistants, they've hired defensive guys, they've hired all kinds of different. The guy who's supposed to be the one who knows how to catch everybody, and they went outside the box and hired an offensive guy, and to put points on the board. They wanted to bring in a more entertaining value of football to the fans. They've done that. All of this has been accelerated because of the quarterback play. Nobody in college football is winning with subpar quarterback play. They're not winning in the NFL, but consistently with subpar quarterback play. Tennessee has struggled to get good quarterback play since Josh Dobbs left here, and they found it with Hendon Hooker. And what Hendon Hooker has done in a short period of time has sped all of this up, and that's where Tennessee's at right now. It's Hendon Hooker being able to operate this offensive system at a high rate of efficiency, quick decisions, understanding it. That's what sped everything up about the process for Tennessee.
Yeah, and that gives us the perfect transition to talk about Hendon Hooker there. Number 2 passing offense in the country, averaging 353 yards per game. Number 1 scoring offense, averaging just under 50 points per game. A 44-point outing against Kentucky brought him down there. The fact that a 44-point outing is bringing you down in terms of a scoring offense and your average there says a lot about what Tennessee has done. Like you said, it all starts at the quarterback position. How how have you seen Hendon Hooker grow from year one, where he didn't come into the year as the starter, took over for Joe Milton, transitioned and developed and grew into a leader in that offense? Georgia fans saw him last year, had a okay day. Was not at his best against Georgia, I would say, but certainly, challenged that Bulldogs defense, especially early in that game. And that was a generational defense that Georgia had. How have you seen him grow from year one to year two?
Well, I think confidence. I think his confidence grew throughout the year last year. I think it's continued to grow this off season. I think he went to work mentally and physically to improve some things in his game. I think the other thing that's helping Tennessee and helping Hendon Hooker that gets overlooked, Kirby Smart talked about it earlier this week. Tennessee's ability to run the football changes what they do offensively, and it helps Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker's got the full playbook at his disposal. He can check into anything whenever he wants to. He sets his protections. Lots and lots of things are on his shoulders mentally, and he's been able to handle that. His ability to check into the right run looks and help Tennessee's run game get going has made this offense even more dynamic and has made Hooker a better player. You look at a year ago, Tennessee rushed for 55 yards against Georgia. And I know nobody moved the ball against Georgia, but Tennessee was really ineffective last year running the football against good defenses. Georgia, Alabama, teams like that. You look at them this year, they got off to a slow start. They averaged just over 2 yards a carry at Pitt, rushed for less than 100 yards. In SEC play, they're averaging almost 5 yards a carry. And that's causing defenses some problems, because if you have to commit extra people to stop the run game, that's when they get the matchups they like on the perimeter. If you can stop their run game with your base front and don't have to add people, then you can do some different things in the back end. You can play zone and you can do some different stuff like that. You look at the Kentucky game, and on Tennessee's third drive, Kentucky said, "You're not going to throw it over our heads." So they backed everybody out. They dropped their safeties deep. They played kind of a balloon coverage and lightened the box with 4 to 5 people in the box. And Josh Heupel and Hendon Hooker said, "We'll run it." They ran it 13 of 15 snaps on a 75-yard scoring drive. So there's a little bit more. The balance that they have this year has made Hendon Hooker a better football player. The ability to run the football has helped Hendon Hooker out a great deal and has freed up and opened up the field even more for Tennessee. And then he's playing at an elite level from a confidence standpoint, has total belief in himself. He did not have that when he arrived at Tennessee. Pretty broken from his time at Virginia Tech. Tennessee's got the confidence rolling. He's playing at a high level right now.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the run offense of Tennessee gets overlooked because of the flashy stats, the big long touchdowns, and understandably so, considering what Tennessee has done throwing the ball. But like you said, Kirby Smart has said it multiple times. This team can run the ball. This team is very good at running the ball. They're top 10 in the country in terms of rushing offense there. So like you pointed out with Kentucky, if you want to play and just defend the pass, they're going to beat you with the run. If you want to defend the run, well, they've got a passing game as well. So it is an overall balanced offense that I think a lot of folks don't necessarily see, because they do see the highlights. They do see the long touchdowns and Jalen Hyatt, and Georgia fans certainly remember Cedric Tillman going for 200 plus against them last year. Speaking of those wide receivers, just for a Georgia fan that may not have watched a ton of Tennessee, maybe, like I said, has seen those highlights, has seen just the clips here and there from this run up to an 8-0 start and a number one ranking. Describe to me the offense. My understanding of it is that Tennessee spreads people out, puts the receivers at insane splits, and puts them outside the numbers. Sometimes you're watching on the television and you can't see one of the guys because they're hidden right below the score line on the television. The insane splits open things up, which allows them to puts cornerbacks on an island with those talented receivers and open things up in the middle for the run game. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Brent.
No, you're right. I mean, it starts with the splits, and they're sideline to sideline with their splits. They'll stack their receivers. They love to run switch routes, a lot of wheel routes out of that. They're throwing the ball over the middle more than they did a year ago because of the confidence of Hendon Hooker. That's made the offense even more dynamic. and that puts more pressure on the safeties. You have to make a decision defensively. Are you going to go outside the hash marks as safeties? And if you do, that opens up the middle. If you're going to keep your safeties on the hash or down in the box, then it's going to give you the one-on-one matchups out there. The other thing that they'll do with the same personnel that's caused some teams some problems is they'll condense that formation down. Without changing formation, without changing personnel, they'll go to an I formation out of that look. That they'll squeeze it down really, really tight and bunch it up at the line of scrimmage, in the C gap and come at you that way. So there's more wrinkles to this offense in year two as Tennessee's players have grasped it, and Tennessee has installed more and more. The tempo is obviously a factor. They don't want you to sub. And so it's about matchups. It's about tempo. It's about spreading the field. And it's about trying to create a little bit of chaos on the defensive side of the ball, because the ability to be in multiple formations with the same personnel, throw that in with the speed and the tempo that you play with, you create some natural mismatches and some bust. And then they make you make some decisions. And if the quarterback makes the right decision based on your decision, then you got a chance for a big play. And that's what happened in the Kentucky game on the 2 Jalen Hyatt touchdowns. The safety came down and took the crosser because he felt like the corner was in trouble on the crossing route, and Tennessee was out the back door with 2 wide open touchdowns to Jalen Hyatt. So when it works, it's very, very pretty. When it doesn't, it's a quick punt. It's 3 and out, and it puts the Tennessee defense in a bad spot. This fall, it's worked more than it's not worked.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jalen Hyatt there in some of the matchups. Not many teams have matched up super well against him and these Tennessee wide receivers. Who is the team that you think played this defense? Played their defense the best against this offense, and how do you go about slowing down Jalen Hyatt, Brew McCoy, Ramel Keaton, Cedric Tillman, on and on and on?
Well, the team that defended him the best was Pittsburgh early in the year. Hooker did not play particularly well, particularly at the start of that game. He was high with the football, had a couple of mechanical things that didn't go well. Tennessee turned it over, and again, Tennessee couldn't run the football. Pittsburgh could stop the run. They felt like their defensive front could handle Tennessee's offensive line. That allowed them to do some different things in the secondary. Brew McCoy was in his second game as a Tennessee receiver in this offense, so he was still learning. And Jalen Hyatt hadn't really taken off yet. So that was a different Tennessee offense in week 2. But that was that's the team that slowed Tennessee down the most. And again, I go back to the stat. 91 yards rushing. Tennessee's best runner that day was Hendon Hooker. They did not have a ground game, and that made Tennessee one-dimensional. You look at the LSU game, Tennessee runs for 200 yards, Florida 200 yards, Alabama 170. When they can do that, it changes a lot of things. Much the same way for Georgia, right? If it's all on Stetson Bennett, that's a different offense than it is when you're able to run it for 150 or 200 yards. So that's not to say Stetson Bennett can't play and that he can't make the plays for you. But anytime a quarterback has a run game at his disposal that's effective, it just frees you up in the passing game to do a lot of things. So Pittsburgh's the team that stopped them the best because they could stop the run in week 2.
Enough about this offense. Let's talk a little bit of Tennessee defense, because it is a unit that has been overlooked, for particularly their run defense, top 10 in the country there. What would you say the identity of this Tennessee defense is? Why is it that you've seen them get in so many shootouts? Is it just that they are getting put back out on the field so quickly, like you said, where it is either, this offense is boom or bust of sorts, and a lot of times those busts put them out there quickly, and then those booms do the same because they are, scoring so quickly with the tempo and with the big plays. Is that what you're seeing in this defense, that they're being put out there a lot and having to play more, and as a result they're giving up more points? What have you seen from this Tennessee defense, and is it a group that you think is being overlooked?
I think it's a group that's playing the run really well right now. I think it's a group that in the secondary had their best game against Kentucky. The biggest thing for Tennessee's defense, particularly early in the year against Florida and some other teams, is they struggled on 3rd and long. They would win 1st and 2nd down and got teams in 3rd and long situations. and they couldn't get off the field. And that was a bugaboo a year ago. That was what cost them in the Ole Miss game. It's what kept Florida in the game in Knoxville this year, because they got something like 70% conversion rates on 3rd and 7 plus. So you got them in the right spot. You got them where you wanted, but you couldn't get off the field. In the Kentucky game, they had Kentucky in 3rd and 7 plus 10 times, and Kentucky went 0 for 10. And suddenly now, all of a sudden, Kentucky's got 6 points because Tennessee's getting off the field on 3rd down. That's the biggest challenge for this group. And that's, you go back to this Georgia matchup a year ago. Tennessee gets the opening touchdown. Georgia gets out and gets on the field, and they get into a 3rd and 7, and it's Stetson Bennett for 13 yards and a first down. And Tennessee couldn't get off the field. Tennessee wants to be in 3rd and long. They just have to do a better job of getting off the field on 3rd and long, which they did against Kentucky. Now, this week's a total different challenge, but that's the key for this Tennessee defense. They're playing more bodies up front, which is keeping them fresh. They're playing super aggressive, blitzing a lot, coming from different places, adding some twists and stunts and wrinkles. They want to play offensive football. They're okay with giving up some yards, win in the red zone, a little bit of bend, don't break, if you will. When the opportunity presents, you got to get off the field. And that was the difference Saturday night. They got off the field, which they didn't do a good enough job of against Florida. They didn't do a good enough job of against Alabama. And as a result, those two games were shootout games in Knoxville. I mean, they had Alabama in 3rd and long multiple times and just couldn't get off the field. So that's the key stat for me about this matchup when you look at Tennessee's defense versus Stetson Bennett and the offense.
You mentioned a couple of those games, those big ones, Florida and Alabama particularly, and also Kentucky this past weekend being in Knoxville. Tennessee has gone on the road a couple of times, Pitt, LSU. To me, I think that this will probably be the toughest environment that they are going into, considering the stakes of this game, the magnitude, the build-up for this one. How do you think Tennessee is going to handle not only going into this environment, but also going in as the number one team with the expectation that, that they're not necessarily an underdog. They are, being looked at as an equal to Georgia.
Well, the odds maker says they're a pretty heavy underdog. So Tennessee can always play that angle in the locker room the same way Kirby Smart can play the angle of, we're 3rd in the college football playoff. Nobody respects you. So everybody can play the whole us against the world mentality if they want to in this game. And I'm sure there will be that to some degree. The one thing Josh Heupel has done with this team that speaks volumes to what he believes the maturity of his team is they've embraced the moment. He's not downplayed the moment. He's not, Lou Holtz and all shucksed it, if you will, and tell them, guys, turn your phones off and ignore all the outside noise. He's told his team, embrace the journey. Your work has created this journey. Now, you got to go to work every day on the practice field, but it's not been, there's been no change. Their preparation for UT Martin was the same as it was for Alabama and Kentucky. And I know that sounds crazy, but their routine was the same. They didn't suddenly limit media access. They didn't say this guy can't talk or this, that, or the other. Josh Heupel, as a former player at the elite level, winning a national title, has said, you just got to roll with it and you got to embrace the moment. And that's what Tennessee is trying to do. Once you get on the field in this game, it's by far the loudest crowd Tennessee's going to play in front of. I mean, Pittsburgh, there's no crowd there. There's no crowd noise. And when you play LSU at 11 a.m. Central Time, those fans they're not ready to roll. And, of course, Tennessee jumped on LSU early, and they never had a chance to get rolling in that game. So this will be different. I don't think the moment will be too big for Tennessee. I think the biggest question, Palmer, is just where is Tennessee from an operational standpoint? You know what I'm saying? You don't want your tight end to jump off sides. You don't want your left tackle or right tackle because they can't hear to jump off sides. And suddenly, instead of being in 2nd and 6, you're in 2nd and 11. Or instead of 3rd and 2, you're in 3rd and 7, and it changes what you want to do. So I think that's the thing is, can you manage the noise level from an operational standpoint? I don't think either one of these teams are going to not embrace the moment and not appreciate and enjoy the moment. And the beautiful thing about the college football playoff is we've seen one-loss teams still get in. So, you know what I'm saying? It's not like if you lose, it's over. Now, maybe you got to have help, but it doesn't say if you lose this game, you're completely out of it. What it does say is the loser of this game is not going to go to the SEC championship game in Atlanta, when you look at what's left on the schedule for both teams, it's hard for me to see either team losing after this game. So it's of huge magnitude. But I think Tennessee's done a good job embracing the moment. This will be a little bit different because, nobody gave them a chance. Nobody really thought they were going to beat Alabama, or a lot of people didn't. I don't think a lot of people are going to pick Tennessee to beat Georgia. So I think they can play sort of the same mentality that they played to this point, and that's loose and go play, kind of free.
Well, Brent, certainly appreciate you joining us over at Volquest on the On3 network. Excited to have y'all joining us and excited for this matchup this Saturday. So really appreciate you and look forward to seeing y'all in Athens.
All right. Sounds good, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.